Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we'll be joined by AWOLNATION to discuss their new album, The Phantom 5. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome, Aaron Bruno from AWOLNATION to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely delighted to have you on today. The first question is just simply, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah,
Doing pretty good.
yeah. I don't know what the weather's doing your end. There's certainly the sun has come out in the UK for the first time this year. It's probably not going to last long. It'll be gone soon enough. So it obviously reminds me that it's theoretically summertime. And I've seen AWOLNATION. You've been out. You've played a couple of festivals already this year. Um, Obviously, road testing, I imagine some of the new songs we're going to talk about as we delve into the new album. But how were those first shows for you?
The first shows were kind of trippy experience. They were a little different, and here's why. My guitar player right now, um, he's going through a bit of a family situation where he wasn't able to come to this last show we did in Milwaukee. And so, as everybody knows, the show must go on for better or for worse. And
Yeah.
so we basically had to call an old friend named Jimmy Messer. And I was like, "Hey, Jimmy, are you busy this weekend?" And he's like, "Yeah, not really. What's up?" Well, can you learn a full hour and 20-minute set in 24 hours, basically? And he said, "I'll do the best I can for you." And I was like, "Sold. Let's do it." So, um, I haven't been able to really truly test these songs in a proper manner to get the sense of what I have or don't have. And plus, we're still rolling out some of these songs, and it's always a drag to play a song that nobody knows at all. Once in a while, it could be fun, but um, how many times have we gone to see a band we love and they come out and blast us with three new songs no one cares about?
Yeah.
So I never want to be that guy. So we're just learning what it all is. The song Panoramic View, that's been out for a while, and the couple times we've played leading up to this moment, it's gone over pretty well.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will because it's a fantastic song. As I must say at this point, are all of the 10 tracks on the album. I've had a sneak peek of it,
Thank
and
you.
I've
Amazing.
fallen madly in love with it. I have to say, it's a great album that
Whoa.
we're gonna dive into. And obviously, before we do that as well, obviously, just best wishes to your guitarist. Hope everything's okay with them, and obviously kudos
Thank
to
you.
Jim. I think you said who jumped in and
Yeah.
saved it. Yeah, well done
Yeah.
then, and that set in that short time is fantastic. What can be achieved, and yeah, obviously a couple of singles out from the album we're going to delve into first before we sort of get into the album itself. And the first I want to talk about is Jump Sit Stand March. Again, it's so catchy. Yeah, the chorus is it's just a song you can really get lost in, and obviously as well it has the guest vocals from Emily Armstrong from Dead Sarah. So I just wanted to really start there and just say, what was the experience like? Obviously working with Emily on that song.
It was one of the easiest experience I've ever had with another singer, to say the least.
Mm.
She's just such a chill person to begin with, um, easygoing and incredibly talented. A lot of times, the more talented the person, the more easygoing because they can, if you have a bass player on a session, let's say, and this person just is incredible, it's easy to communicate and say, "Hey, what about this?" or reference, an old song or a session, and they know exactly what you're talking about, and they can do that. Emily's the same way with her voice, and her and I have kind of similar ranges. Her being a female, of course, but if I were, if I was a female, I feel like I'd be her vocally. um, so it was really easy and fun to do, and she's just a badass. It was great.
Oh, she absolutely is a badass, and I think one of the things that shines through and helps elevate. And we'll talk about the videos in a second as well, and my love of music videos because it does help me get a sense of where artists are with their songs they've put out, the career in general, and it really did look like you're just having fun on that one, and on the whole record as well. I've to jump ahead a little bit. For me, it feels like a love letter to AWOL Nation from yourself, which maybe has something to do with obviously you've talked about when you started writing it, it was uh, possibly going to be the last album, so maybe that's where that sort of comes from. But both the tracks that are out already are great, and Panoramic View. To sort of jump into that question that I had, I'm always intrigued and ask this question fairly often on this podcast actually because it does interest me. Panoramic View was the first song from this album, and obviously this is the sort of fifth album from the band now, but there's been a bit of a change, more independent now. I always just am interested to know what about that first song sort of stood out to make it be that statement of a song that comes out to lead the record. So for Panoramic View, Aaron, what made that song stand out to be that statement?
Well, for starters, it was the first time I got to make the decision in such a freeing way. Ultimately, I've had last say with AWOL Nation from the first record until now, but there were way more cooks in the kitchen, at least trying to implement their opinions or reasoning for which song to go forth with. And in this case, it was there were a handful of songs that seemed like contenders, and there's a bunch that goes into it. You're thinking, well, what will work at radio best, or not even best, but what will work on the business side? What will work at radio best? And then there's what do you like most personally? And then you think, well, what does our fan base want to hear? And so you could lose your mind because especially if you make a record that you're proud of and feel like has provided a bunch of options, which I do feel that this record has. It's a mind fuck, man. It's really crazy because once you pick a song, you've left a bunch behind, and you only have one chance to make a first impression.
Mm.
So it kind of landed on that, and it was between Panoramic View and a handful of others, maybe two others, with the process of elimination for various reasons. And I kind of landed on Panoramic because it's the most sincere and honest song. And I think would have been the last choice had I still been with a label. And so the punk rocker and the chip on my shoulder and in me, I still have that somewhat. I'm like, there's no way another label would pick a mid-tempo ballad first in today's climate musically, right? And so that went into it. And then it's a song I wrote to my family, and so I kind of leaned on that, and it was an easy decision. And again, we waited to the last minute, and I was talking to my manager Burko, and we were having a heart to heart, and I'm like, well, where are you at? And he's like, dude, it's Panoramic View. And I said, me too. And so we just went with that. And here's the secret: no one knows what they're doing. If you talk to Rick Rubin, if you talk to the most powerful A&R person in all of the music industry, if you talk to Rolling Stone magazine, no one really knows, right? I mean, and I could say that because I've had certain songs that sound like hits to me and ended up not becoming hits. And then with a song like Sail or Run, these songs became sort of otherworldly and no one expected them to. Maybe if you're straight up pop artist, maybe when whoever makes their record, it's a little more formulaic and easier to figure out what works best, or they do testing. But we don't have anything like that going on here, and we just kind of went from shot from the hip and heart, and it's going pretty well. It's going better than I thought it would, so that's great.
That is great, and I think personally you've made a fantastic choice. Having heard the album as a whole as well, I just think yeah, it's a beautiful introduction to the
Thank you.
album, and yeah, so many valid reasons that you just put across so well for the reason for picking it. And I say it's for me, it's always just a fascination I have, to be honest, because it is that sort of statement, that first single, and clearly, a lot of thought really does go into it. So it's always fascinating to get the insights of the artist into it. So thank you for that. And another fascination of mine, as I kind of touched upon already, or an obsession really, is music videos. And I say this as I've just been reminded before we began to talk that this weekend Kerrang TV in the UK will stop transmitting, which is the last sort of bastion of sort of rock music videos on UK TV. And it's such a shame because I grew up at a time when music TV, MTV, was massive, and before school, after school, that was not just my introduction to specific artists, but just music as a whole, and the sort of subgenres and cultures that come along with obviously the different styles of music. And I would take my look, for example, from the way that artists would look in a video, and I'm very passionate about what a music video can mean. And in 2024, of course, as I say, Kerrang's now gone. YouTube really is the main source for videos, but it is a bit of a dying art, really. And sometimes I interview bands on our podcast, and they've not made any videos, for financial reasons or for artistic reasons, whatever it may be. I'm always a bit upset, really. So I've checked out the videos for both the songs we've just talked about, and again, I've got to say, just so well crafted, the two videos to fit the two songs. They work really, really well, and just help to get my buy-in really as a viewer or a listener into the music itself, and obviously yourself as an artist in the band. So first question really on the video side is just do you share that sort of sense of importance for music videos? Are they something that you are keen to still make even in 2024?
Yeah, less people care about them than ever before, which makes me, I think, put a little more effort into them. And I share the exact same passion that you do. I mean, like as a kid growing up in my most impressionable years, uh, you usually hear a song, or often cases you would hear a song with the visual at the same time. Because I would stay up late, and here we would watch, MTV, and of course 120 minutes where you discover the underground stuff, which sometimes would end up being mainstream eventually. Um, and it was enormous. It was enormous. And I, like you, yeah, learned how to dress from watching these videos. Um, and that's what music does, right? Music, I talk about this all the time. Like, when you're 11, 12 years old or whatever. And so many of my friends have kids at this age now. My kids are much younger, but it's so fun to watch them dress in a certain way, and identify that they must be listening to a certain kind of music. And it's wonderful. And so, with these music videos, I gotta say, I've made so many now. And I don't think I it's hard to like your own music video because it's you most of the time. There's a few videos I got to make where I wasn't in them, and I got away with that, and that was awesome for a variety of reasons. But I have noticed that people mostly want to see, the person singing the song at some point, right?
Yeah.
So I rolled up my sleeves and just accepted that and thought, okay, can this be fun and look interesting enough? And those are the so with panoramic view, for example, um, I became hip to that aluminum recycling yard. And I thought that would be bizarre for me to just exist in that space and sing this ballad. So the contradiction of it all felt like a fun um, concept. And we just went with it. It ended up being perhaps my favorite music video I've made. The one with Emily was really fun too, but there's something about Panoramic that just kind of, and also wearing basically a costume or an outfit that I usually don't wear allowed me to kind of hide behind the goggles and the helmet and everything. And it was just a lot of fun. It was freeing. Um, if you're in a video where you're being filmed as in the clothes you would usually wear either on stage or um, to a friend's wedding. That's basically how I always look at it. I'm like, okay, well, what would I wear to a lighthearted wedding? That's how I'm gonna approach. And as a slight tourist, that's kind of what I'm going for these days on stage. But it was just really fun to make, and I love the contrast between this epic, powerful machinery and such a heartfelt ballad. But to answer your question around about way, yeah, music videos mean the world to me. Um, and it's probably safe to say that less are being made that mean as much, but with technology and how much easier it is to make a video now than it was when we were younger, there's more opportunities for people to express themselves in such a cool way. And people have to be more clever, more creative with how they approach it because I mean, you and I are talking on cameras right now.
Yeah.
We could make music videos with these devices very easily. You may be on a desktop or laptop right now, but so creativity is everything. And I would say the same thing with music in a parallel way, because I mean, I try to talk to my wife who's much younger than me. She's 10 years younger than me. And she's an older soul, but I try to express to her, like, do you understand how absolutely mind blowing and magical it is that I could talk to you right now and you could tell me about a song I've never heard. And when we get off this interview, I could hear it.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. We used to have to wait. I remember seeing speaking of videos, the LL Cool J Mama Said Knock You Out video. Okay.
Yeah.
The video was so hard. He sounded so good. I loved the song. This was before it became like the Jock Jams anthem that it is known as today. But I mean, that was like a renegade, you know, anthem for me when I heard it. And I saw it once and it haunted me forever because I saw it and then the song wasn't going to actually come out or be available to purchase for like 6 months. It felt like an eternity. I don't remember exactly how long it was. So then I glued myself to the TV every day around that same time to see the video again. And so that doesn't happen anymore. And my point is, anyone can make a music video today. That's awesome. Almost anyone can make music today with technology. It's so user friendly. So since there's so much information, so much content available, it's harder to stand out. So when you do, it's special. So I think there's a whole group of people, and probably kids who are about to make absolutely groundbreaking music because they have access to everything that's ever been recorded. Think about that.
Yeah.
We didn't have that.
No.
I'd have to like bully my best friend into letting me borrow his cassette tape. And now anyone can hear anything at any time, and that's a beautiful thing to me.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing, and yeah, it does put it into perspective. Absolutely, how easy and accessible music and again, yeah, the music videos themselves on YouTube are these days compared to, like you say, that 6 month wait. I certainly remember similar sort of circumstances, and yeah, it's a completely different game now, and that's not a bad thing whatsoever. But I really love your sentiments on music videos and obviously your thought processes behind them, because it's something I can yeah, really just enjoy. And I say the two videos definitely need to be checked out by listeners. And I always say there'll be links in the bio of this episode, listeners. So go click through, go and check them out, and definitely well worth it. Especially as Aaron, you said, panoramic view. I love the juxtaposition between the song and obviously the video, and as well. Actually, this first time I have to say it's sort of come across to me from someone I'm interviewing around the ability to obviously just simply putting on some different clothes, or not a sort of costume or disguise, or however you want to term it, but actually how freeing that can be to you, because you're no longer in that awkward situation of being you and being filmed. So that was really fascinating to me as well. Moving now onto the album, the Phantom 5, fifth album for AWOLNATION. And as we touched upon a while ago, you have kind of mentioned that, writing the album, you thought potentially this could be the last AWOLNATION album. So, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of moved somewhat away from that thought process now, and realized that it quite possibly isn't. But how did that mindset at the time change the way that you wrote the album?
Well, when I started compiling this group of songs, we were also at a place where no one really knew when we were going to be allowed to have concerts again. So there's that. But and then down the timeline from that moment, I also thought it would be really romantic to consider it as the last album. There are a lot of instances in life where you may be having your last moment with someone, whether it's a date or lunch, coffee, a dance, where and you're not aware of that, right? So and I don't mean to be so sad, but it doesn't have to be so dramatic either. But you never really know when it's the last time you're going to talk to someone, right? And so I wanted to approach it as if I did know that, and take control of the situation and think, well, if this is our last hurrah, if this is our last date, I want to leave a good lasting impression with this group of songs, and certainly the last song, Out of Here, and sort of service the listener in a way that felt complete and worthwhile. And it was just a different approach that I've never had or considered, and I really liked it. And so I'm 50-50 on that. I mean, we'll see how this all goes. I'm a family man now. Things are a little different in my world. I still have new song ideas and all that, but I just don't know how much longer I'll want to leave home,
Yeah.
and that whole grind. But at the same time, I feel an obligation and a responsibility and a weight on my shoulders that has been such a gift to carry on all at the same time. But it's a win-win situation. If it's the last record, I think it's the appropriate last record that I wanted to make or fantasized about making. If it isn't, well, then it's just some fun drama to talk about right now with you.
Yeah, it's very true. It is. And I agree with the sentiments of it's that perfect kind of send off, really, in the sense of, I say, I've been listening to it and writing the review that we're going to publish for it. And I believe the last line of that review says something along the lines of, if this is the last AWOLNATION record, it is the perfect record to go out on. However, it will leave you desperately wanting more.
Thank you.
So, I say, I personally hope it's not obviously the last, but if it is the last, it's definitely, I say, a love letter to the band, really, because obviously the different sounds that make up AWOLNATION and have done over the last, 15 years or more now. I feel old saying that, but it's all on there. But there's also a freshness to it at the same time. So, whether you're a fan of older AWOLNATION or newer AWOLNATION or any AWOLNATION. You're going to love this album, is what I would say. So, yeah, for yourself, obviously on the cusp of release, well, 2 months away from release, fifth album, and obviously, you've been in other bands, you've released other music. At this point in your career, what is the sort of sense for you? Is it excitement? The feeling of excitement of putting the record out, or is there maybe a bit of sort of trepidation? How do you feel at this point?
Well, thank you for your kind words, and um, the last bit of the review is exactly what I was hoping for. So
Good.
maybe I did it.
I think so.
uh, Thanks. Well, hard to describe. I've talked to my wife about this before, but the creation of an album is really exciting. It's kind of, I liken it to the honeymoon phase of dating someone, at the start of a relationship where everything feels good, but you're scared, and, you really like this person, and you hope it goes well because you're vulnerable. And that's the point of the honeymoon phase, is you're vulnerable and you could be hurt. Not that you can't be hurt down the line, you certainly could be, but you have butterflies, all that. And that's how I feel when I'm making these new songs, and a group, and it's exciting and it's ever changing. And then when you're done with that, there's a sense of relief, and that's great, in some ways, but then now it's time to actually release it. And that's pretty scary, because I'm walking around in my head thinking, well, this thing's incredible, right? But I don't know if the listener can relate to this. I'm sure they can, but maybe you have a good idea at work, and then it's your turn to present it to everybody, and you're confident as can be about this idea. But then when you go to present the idea and people are actually there to hear it, you may realize your idea sucks. Or how many times I've said to a friend, you got to hear this new song, not one of mine, but some other song I love, or a movie, and then you watch it with them, and you're looking at the movie through the lens of your friend who's with you, and then you start to doubt yourself and think, maybe this movie isn't that good. Does this person think I'm a punk ass for even suggesting this film we're watching or suggesting the song we're listening to? And so, while I do like to isolate myself and not show anyone any of the music because I don't want any other opinions, I want to get it to the best place it can be, um, and service the idea as best as I can. It is nice to test it on a few people eventually, because that it's really scary. And so if I'm sitting in my car and I'm playing it for an old friend whose opinion I respect musically, it can be terrifying. But if that moment happens and I still feel good, I feel like I've got something with that. So to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know what I feel right now, other than I'm glad I made it. And luckily, in today's world, I'm several steps down the line as far as what I'm creating next. So some of these songs are kind of like old news to me. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily. I mean, the scariest one is the first song that you put out of the gates, and Panoramic View has been received so well that the rest is kind of bonus. And I'm just happy I'm still breathing, and have people to talk to about my music.
Absolutely, best way to look at it for sure. And yeah, I mean, from listening to it, I'm sure the reception to it's going to be fantastic. I mean, I can certainly remember a fair few scenarios as you described where you've shown something that you love to someone else, and you're just watching their face intently to look at their reaction to try and see what you think they are going to think of it. So yeah, I can understand the sort of the fear of the unknown putting it out there, but absolutely glad you are, because I say again, listeners, to drill at home, you've got to really check out this album when it's out. And followed on from that, of course, there's a tour. You're out with 311 across America all summer really, and Neon Trees opening up as well. So I mean, that's going to be a great tour for everyone in the US. Definitely, again, links will be in the bio. Go along, grab a ticket if you can. I know, yeah, you sort of touched upon the one of the reasons for the potentially, this being the last A1 Nation is you've got a young family now and don't necessarily want to be going all across the world and leaving them at home anymore. But I feel as a UK-based, obviously, podcast, I do have to ask the question. Is there still hope that AWOL Nation will come over even for the odd show to the UK on this album cycle?
Yeah, I have every intention of going over there next year. I just don't know when or how, um, or where, but we have every intention of doing that.
Which is music to my ears, absolutely, because these songs, a lot of them really sound like they deserve to be heard live. So certainly looking forward to that. And we're nearing the end of our chat. We have a segment we always end on that I'll come to in just a moment. But actually, before then, I was keen just to ask you something which is a bit more personal to me, to be honest. Because preparing for the interview, I read that you have sort of partial hearing loss in your left ear, sort of unilateral hearing loss in one ear. And my son, who's 10, is deaf in one ear. So obviously it's something that is quite personal to me. And obviously trying to understand the world that he's living in and how he's experiencing it. So, for me to be able to point to the likes of Paul Stanley from Kiss has the same conditions as my son, Mike Crozier, and obviously yourself is another example of someone that's made a success in a noisy environment, with that issue. I just wanted to ask, really, I mean, how that has impacted you, and I suppose if you've got any tips for me as a father of my son on how I can help him moving forward.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Well, for starters, was he born this way or did it
Yeah,
happen after?
born this way. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, the good news is he doesn't know any different. And
Hmm.
the same was true for me. So I'm 80% deaf in my left ear. So I was told. I mean, it's probably worse now because my ears have quite a bit of wear and tear on them. But I don't know it any different. I suppose if it happened to me at age 12, let's say, it would have been much more impactful. But I just, look, there's a lot of ways to look at it. I'll just I'll lean on the side of the glass being half full. And your son has a unique perspective that most people don't. So he's going to hear things differently. There are advantages to that. There are comedic advantages. One, if someone's talking that's a bit annoying in his left ear, well, I don't know which ear it is. For me, my left ear is my bad ear. And so if someone's talking to me in my left ear and it's, not necessarily what I want to hear, I can't hear him anyway. So that's one plus. And then the other one is like, the way I hear music and the way I mix these songs, it's probably kind of weird compared to someone who could hear 100% in both ears. And maybe, just maybe, that's given me a unique outlier sort of sound, because no one's looking to sound like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think I tend to put the instruments that I like the most on the right side in a mix. Um, and I just don't know any different. So I've never taken time to, aside of, so I had a lot of pain in my left ear growing up too. Like I had to have tubes put in them, and I had a lot of earaches that were pretty unbearable. My parents were doing their best to navigate through that. And aside of those sort of traumatic, like, physical pain moments I had, um, it's just something I've always lived with, and I don't think I would change it.
Yeah.
If there was a magic pill I could take that would make my hearing come back, it would. I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't take it. So I don't know if that sheds any sort of encouragement or help other than you said it was your son, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's a special it could be a special gift.
yeah, yeah. No,
It has been for me.
it's fantastic to hear, and I really appreciate you answering that with such sort of candidness and everything. It's yeah, no, really, really, really good of you, and really helpful to me. So thank you for that. And
Awesome.
yeah, as I say, our time is almost up. We always finish with the last segment is always the same segment. Something we brought in early on in this podcast because we found we were talking a lot about issues within the music industry with the guests on the podcast. So we kind of shoehorned it into the sort of last segment, as it were. And we're going to enter fantasy land because it's called Magic Wand. And Aaron, I'm going to give you a magic wand, and with that magic wand, you can change one thing about the music industry, but obviously one thing only. So it can be quite a tricky one because there's a lot that probably should change. So, with your magic wand, Aaron, what would you change?
I'm gonna take a second to think about this. No one's ever asked me this, and I should have studied. I should have been prepared for the most ins radical question I've ever been asked, possibly in my life. I want to answer this right. Okay, I would eliminate all award shows.
Ooh, interesting one.
I don't believe that anyone should receive an award based off a committee of gatekeepers who make decisions on who deserves an award or not for music. You know, the disagreements between what you think is deserving of a trophy versus what I think. And well, it sounds like you and I would maybe agree on some of that, but yeah, I find that to be a bunch of silliness. And I guess that would be the thing I would eliminate.
No, that's a great answer because that's the first time we've had that answer. Definitely first time we've had that answer, and yeah, you got me thinking there, and I can certainly see the benefits. I mean, we talked earlier about how easy it is to make music now and how much music is out there, how accessible it is. So how can you really pick, and say, well, this song above all other songs is worthy of this award because it is personal, yeah, personal opinions, isn't it? So yeah, no, great answer to
What?
that actually.
Thanks. I became, I researched a little bit of at some point in my career, um, and way before I had a chance to be someone that could be possibly nominated for something. Um, I looked into what it takes to, be nominated. And as a kid growing up, and I would watch these shows, of course, whether it was the MTV Video Awards and get to see Nirvana live, or, I remember, yeah, like there's been some amazing shows, and like concert moments within these award shows, and those are great. But like, look, dude, it's all the same. It's all the same sort of shadowy figures that run the world. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. It just seems the whole premise of it seems ridiculous. But then if you really like look into if someone's given an award, any kind of award for music, well, who made that decision? And do you agree with those? Do you agree with their taste in music and so forth and so on? So, yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, no, again, yeah, great answer. Yeah, it's good to get something a little bit different, actually. So, yeah, thank you for that. And thank you, obviously, for joining me. I mean, listeners, as we've
No problem.
touched upon, obviously, Jump, Sit, Stand, March, Panoramic View, both out now, both got music videos. Definitely go and check them out now. 30th of August for the Phantom 5. As I say, absolutely amazing album. Listeners definitely need to check it out. And for obviously US listeners, the tour with 311 all summer. There'll be a link in the bio. Find a date, head along. That's my final message. But I always give the final message just across to the guests. Aaron, how would you like to sign off the podcast today?
Well, I just thought that was really sweet of you to share your son's story. And I'll be rooting for him one way or another. But I appreciate all your kind words too, and you sort of explained the record to be how I hoped it could be at best. So hopefully other people will feel the same way. And I appreciate anyone for, giving a damn to hear what I have to say at all.
Absolutely. And they certainly will give a damn. Great record. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Aaron. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Have a wonderful sunny day.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with AWOLNATION. Do make sure you check out their new album, The Phantom 5, which is out on August the 30th. And of course, follow the band across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.